Today we're going to dive into one of Carl Jung's most powerful and, let's be honest, most unsettling ideas. We're going to see it all through the eyes of one person, a man we'll just call Michael, whose life really shines a light on a psychological trap that's, well, it's a lot more common than you might think.
So just picture this for a second. A man who, from the outside, has it all. I mean, every single advantage, a life of privilege. But underneath all that, where it really counts, he's just completely paralyzed. So what's going on here? That's the paradox we're going to unravel.
On paper, Michael is the definition of perfect. He's 38, handsome, went to all the best schools. He can walk into any room and just charm everyone. His whole life looks like this flawless series of wins. But that perfection, it's really just gold plating on a cage. All that ambition he once had has shrunk down to one tiny goal. Just don't mess up.
Now, there's a Jungian term for this exact condition, the Puer Aeternis. It's Latin for the eternal boy. It describes a man who is trapped, not by actual iron chains, but by something so much stronger, the invisible chains of a very, very particular kind of love. So where in the world do these chains even come from? To really get to the bottom of that, we have to look at one of Jung's most fundamental ideas, the shadow side of an incredibly powerful archetype.
You see, Jung believed we all share this kind of collective unconscious, and it's filled with these built-in patterns he called archetypes. One of the absolute most powerful is the Great Mother, and she has two faces. On one side, you have the nurturing mother. She's the source of life, of safety, of growth. But, you know, every light casts a shadow, and her shadow is the devouring mother, whose love isn't about setting you free, it's about possession.
Okay, and this is so important to understand. We are not talking about evil mothers here. This is not about pointing fingers or laying blame. What we're actually looking at is a psychological dynamic that is almost always unconscious. It's usually driven by a mother's own deep-seated fears and what she tragically truly believes is a protective love. So if it's not about blame, if it's this unconscious dynamic, how does it actually work? I mean, how are the bars of this psychological cage actually built, day by day, in the real world? Well, it happens through a few very specific tools of control.
And you know, these tools are incredibly subtle. From the outside, they're often hard to even spot because they're masked as just a mother's deep love, but they are brutally effective. We're going to focus on two of the most powerful, overprotection and conditional praise.
This quote just perfectly captures that first tool, overprotection. She solves all his problems for him, she fights his battles, she shields him from the exact pain and the exact struggle that are necessary for him to build a strong soul. And the result? It's like you've guaranteed the lion's safety, but you have stolen its power. You've stolen its very essence. Then you have this second tool, conditional praise. She showers him with love and affection, sure, but not for being independent, not for being strong. No, the praise comes for being the good boy, the one who is compliant and always stays close to her. This praise literally becomes an addictive drug, wiring his brain to believe that feeling good about himself only comes from making her happy.
And as you can probably imagine, over years and years, the consequences of this dynamic are, well, they're nothing short of catastrophic for a man's psychological development. It leads to a deep, painful split right down the middle of his own soul.
And the damage is profound. That ambition, that fire he's supposed to have, just turns into a source of deep anxiety. And because his internal idea of what it means to be feminine gets all tangled up with his mother, he finds it impossible to form healthy, equal relationships with other women. And just beneath the surface of it all, this deep, unspoken resentment starts to build and build.
This internal damage just wreaks havoc on his relationships. He unconsciously develops what psychologists call the Madonna-Whore complex. He splits women into these two impossible categories. First, you've got the Madonna, good, pure women he can respect, but he feels absolutely no desire for. And then you have the other women, the ones he can desire, but can never truly respect or connect with. He is fundamentally unable to bring love and lust together in one person.
So, after hearing all of that, if you're trapped in a psychological prison that deep, what on earth is the way out? I'll tell you right now, the answer is not something you're going to find in some feel-good self-help book. The path out requires what feels like an unforgivable betrayal.
And we really need to sit with this question for a second, because the solution here isn't about, positive affirmations or some simple little fix. It's something far more brutal
and far more profound.
Escaping this cage means you have to face the deep primal terror that every child has of being abandoned by their source of life, and then you have to choose to walk right through that fire anyway.
So here it is. This is the crucial point. To save his own soul, a man must symbolically kill the compliant, good son that his mother needs him to be. He has to be willing to be seen as selfish, as ungrateful, as the bad guy.
This means setting boundaries that feel like declarations of war. And then, and listen, this is the hardest part, he has to hold that line. Even when he's hit with a tidal wave of her guilt or her sadness, he has to hold it without flinching and without apologizing for it.
Look, the whole point of walking through this wasn't to offer some simple 5-step cure. Frankly, that would be a lie. The purpose was to provide something far, far more valuable.
The purpose was to provide a diagnosis, to turn on the lights in a prison cell you might not have even known you were in. This knowledge, this framework, that is the key.
But here's the bleak and also kind of terrifying truth. You and only you can find the courage to put that key in the lock. Only you can make the choice to turn it, to push open that heavy door, and to walk out into the painful, blinding, and absolutely glorious sunlight of an authentic life.